Well, hello. I'm sitting outdoors because it's a beautiful day and I felt like recording this outdoors. I'm in beautiful Spearfish Canyon, and I'm going to talk about a book that has a lot of scenes that take place outdoors. Actually, I'm going to talk about 14 books, so here we go. I'm going to talk about Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. This is a series of books he wrote beginning in the 1990s. I remember seeing it on the shelves over the years and always thinking, oh, wonder what that's about, never buying it. So turned out I did have a paperback copy, so this fall I just decided to read it at random, and I'm glad I did. So first of all, 14 books, wow. Although, to be fair, he died before completing the series, so he asked, because he knew he was dying, he asked Brian Sanderson, another author, to finish the series for him. So first of all, I wrote quite a lengthy overview thing of the series, and yipe. So I thought better of it, and we're going to go with this. The clouds are not cooperating, so my lighting may be a little goofy. So this is a rewrite. It's a lot less detailed and hopefully spoiler-free, except for very mild spoilers. So first of all, I was amazed by the wealth of characters and cultures in these books. And yeah, mostly they are distinct. I did struggle to tell apart the various ladies of the Red Aja. They all seem to have the same personality, except until toward the end, one of them turned out to be a half-decent lady. And a couple of the, unpleasant characters and dark friends. You're like, okay, yeah, we've seen that character before under a different name. But even a lot of the villains had distinct personalities, very distinct people and places. So yeah, characters were a strength in these books. Most grew and changed, including the villains. Our main cast was, from the country, and they like it that way, and kind of yanked out of their comfort zone. Oh yeah, besides the river, there's also traffic here. You can pick them there, squirrel. But anyway, they're kind of from the country, but by the end of the books, they kept a lot of the traits that made them them, but they became quite refined and ladies and gentlemen of the world, leaders of the world. This growth actually also happened in the villains in different ways. Some of the villains actually, in one case, motorcycles. Actually, some of the villains in one case actually redeemed herself completely, I think. So an interesting aspect of this world is female power. Because of previous events before the story took place, whenever men use magic, it slowly makes them go insane. So really only women can use the magic. And that definitely upsets the gender dynamic found in a lot of fiction, especially fantasy fiction. So in these books, you'll often find the female characters denigrating the men. They've got the power. On that note, there is an element of corporal punishment that I did not like that. It wasn't a sexual kink thing either. I don't want to get into a whole discussion on corporal punishment, whether it's right or wrong. But I don't know, the idea of spanking a 20-something because they didn't please you in some way, that's just weird. And there was a lot of that in there. And it wasn't a sexual kink thing either. So now I'll say magic stories often suffer because anything can happen. And in this series, what Robert Jordan did right is he set down rules for his magic. He really thought through the rules. Nobody is going to come up with some plot-convenient piece of magic that, whoops, we'll use it for that one thing where we needed a MacGuffin to pull us out of our troubles, then we'll never hear about it again. We'll do a little jump here because I found out that changing pages is loud. Not all 14 books are of the same quality. And, the author died. So he didn't even write the last 3 books of the series. Apparently he did know he was dying. So he picked Brian Sanderson himself. He picked Brian Sanderson as his successor, as the person he felt worthy and capable of completing his books. They spent a lot of time conferring, and actually apparently Robert Jordan wrote the enigmatic final scene, which I won't tell you what it is because that's a spoiler. Robert Jordan did take the time to write one prequel novel. From what I understand, it was not well received, and having read it, yeah, I could have done without that and had Brian Sanderson just write 2 final novels. I think we all know every adult, including the one speaking to you right now, started as a child. Yes, I was an awkward teenager. I was a child at one point. If you don't believe me, just ask my parents. But I did find it annoying to see Moraine... Oh, this is a loud vehicle coming. I looked and saw a camper. Thought that was it. Nope, it's the little bitty pickup behind it. He must have pulled his muffler off or something. Yeehaw! Okay. Anyway, it was annoying to see Moraine Damodred as an immature teenager, especially since she's in her 20s while she's acting like a really immature teenager. Some events are just better talked about than shown. You know, I kind of think like Darth Vader's backstory was chilling and enigmatic. How did a good man turn into that? Well, then we saw the prequels and we're just like, oh, he grew up from the petulant teenager that doesn't like sand. So Robert Jordan could also have done with some editing. Oh, sorry, skipped a line here. And yes, some of the novels in this series did drag. You saw lots of setup and then waited several novels to actually get the payoff on it. Robert Jordan could have done with some editing. He loves flowery descriptions of clothing, changes of clothing, details of different rooms, repetitive, do the same kind of scene over and over, just in a slightly different setting to accomplish nothing. You know, there is a lot of that. When Brian Sanderson took over for the last 3 books, he was guilty of the same thing. But did he copy the style seamlessly, or is that his own style? Having never read Brian Sanderson, I'm not sure. In creating his universe, Robert Jordan freely acknowledges how he was inspired by Tolkien. Tolkien himself would tell you that he was inspired by a lot of the myths and legends of Northern Europe. So many elements are shared between Jordan and Tolkien, including the main characters from a remote pastoral community and orcs. I mean, Trollocs. But Jordan went on to create his own mythology. If you couldn't tell, that was another jump so I could flip pages. So Robert Jordan ended up creating his own cultures. He took from many cultures and mythologies worldwide. You know, apparently there's a real-world counterpart to everything in his novels, which the way the Sanshan treat magic women is, I don't know if I want to know what real-world culture that's from, because ew. And he even mixed in some science fiction elements. You know, I got a car parked here. Okay, I guess they're just looking. They didn't get out. So, anyway, Tolkien was interesting because he invented whole languages. Okay, so I don't know what was going on there. They parked beside my car, rolled down all their windows, and I thought, well, maybe they want to do something here and I'm in their way. So I packed up all my gear, started walking back up to my car, and then they left. I don't know what it was about. But anyway, now they can enjoy it. So I'm in a picnic spot and seated much more comfortably. So anyway, I was talking about Tolkien was interesting. He invented his... Actually, let me just backtrack a little bit because I mentioned that Robert Jordan even mixed in some science fiction elements. So his universe repeats and cycles over and over again. And in some of the previous cycles, humanity became quite advanced. Some of the villains actually come from a much more advanced time, and they resent this era of no indoor plumbing, no electricity, no easy travel, little things like that. Anyway, getting back to Tolkien. Tolkien was interesting because he invented whole languages. Robert Jordan didn't do that. Tolkien was a great studier of mythology. I've heard it said we stand on the shoulders of giants. Tolkien is definitely a giant in the world of fantasy fiction. I would argue that Robert Jordan is too. Robert Jordan stands on Tolkien's shoulders. Tolkien stands on the shoulders of all the mythologists and such that went before him. With 14 books, Wheel of Time has spawned YouTube channels, meetups, and a whole culture of its own. And it's worth noting that 14 books have a lot of characters and a lot of storylines. And with all that, the death of the original author, you might well be concerned that plots and characters are lost. Yeah, some are. But for the most part, I thought it was handled very well. There are mysteries left, just like there are in the real world. Some storylines are messy or gray, just like in the real world. The world is left a mess, but considering what was going on in the novels, you'd kind of expect that. I mean, think World War. Yeah, the world is left a mess, but all the important storylines get a satisfying resolution, even if it's not always a happy one. Main characters die, a fun romance ends in tragedy, but we get an ending for most of the main characters. No, let's say all of them, including a lot of the villains. A couple of them were just like, who killed that person? We don't know. We're ending the series not knowing, but for the most part, we get a satisfying resolution to all of them. I felt that it was all wrapped up well, and yet left enough to make you feel like the universe goes on. And the story just feels bigger than the books. And that's quite an accomplishment in a 14-book series. So, yeah, I recommend reading it. My plan is that I will eventually do videos of all 14 books. I want to reread the series now that I know where it ends. I want to see how, the different storylines track and, how things are foreshadowed in earlier books, just to appreciate all of that. So as I reread the books, which won't be in a big 14-book blump, I will discuss all of that. So look forward to seeing videos about these books periodically in the next few years. So and I may yet do that really big, complicated video I was thinking about. Maybe at the end. I'll probably pick out a lot more nuance for it by then. So, anyway, I want to thank you for watching. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.